When it comes to conversations between English and Chinese speakers, the concept of freedom is often not far away. People in the West will often say that those in China do not have the same freedom as them because they cannot critique the government to the same extent as them. However, there are videos online where Chinese get asked if they believe they lack freedom, and they will just laugh and say something like, "Do I not have the freedom to go out on the weekend to my favorite restaurant?" There are Chinese on Chinese social media who sometimes compare the United States to the city in Cyberpunk 2077, where there was a huge wealth disparity, and while many people were able to live great lives, there were others who were not. This is economic freedom, though. It is different than the other type of freedom that Americans are talking about. But I believe that people all over the world do have the same concepts of freedom deep down. It's just our countries have gone on different trajectories and we face different problems because of history. The American Civil War was important for one type of freedom because it ended slavery, but to some people in the South, it was the end of another type of freedom. The people in the South, from the beginning of the United States, believed in Jeffersonian democracy. This was the idea that a single individual could live off the land using his own two hands. He would own a farm, make his own food, create his own tools. Given that the early days of the United States, the country was a huge just piece of land that people could build on to build their own homes, it was a given that this idea would come into being. After the American Civil War, a lot of the older generation was concerned that the younger generation who had not fought in the war were becoming enamored by Northern Yankee ideas about money. They compared this new love of money to robbery. How different is this from the conversations that have been happening in China for the past 120 years? After China began to have more relations with Europe and the United States, it became worried that it needed to compete with these countries, but in order to do so, it needed to let foreigners in to invest in their country. But this brought them a challenge. They needed to choose between two types of freedom. On the one hand, they wanted the freedom to develop, to become a powerful country that could defend itself against other nations. But that would mean giving up the freedom to make their own choices. Think about money like this. When I am a worker in my 20s, I go to a job, and even though I have the freedom to choose where I want to work, where I want to live, my boss controls my time and what I do with that time. That is a loss of freedom. I believe also, if you look back at really ancient Chinese history, there is an idea of freedom that kind of explains the differences in belief systems. If we look at Taoism and Buddhism, two religions or philosophies in China, they have concepts like Ziran and Wu Wei. These ideas are basically a human has a need to go back to their natural state, where they do not need to be concerned with external influences on them. They can just live their life without worrying about other things, in this case, money. What do you think about this?